back, and I'm very pleased to say we are joined by one of the great, mavens on financial matters, a member of our Committee on the Present Danger China, a founding member, in fact, and a man who has had a clarity both about finance and about the nature of the enemy we confront in the Chinese Communist Party that is second to none, in my estimation. His name is Kyle Bass. He is the Chief Investment Officer and founder of Heyman Capital, based in Dallas, Texas. And it is always a privilege to have a chance to visit with him, especially on this occasion, to talk about a couple of things that bear on this question of um, what's going on in the financial sector and how it is of help to our Chinese Communist Party enemies. Kyle Bass, welcome to Securing America. It's good to have you with us.
Great to be here, Frank, and thank you for the kind introduction.
Heartfelt and deserved in this case. Let me ask you a sort of threshold question. You have done handsomely in the financial world. You have a clarity about how to make money, but also things that should be avoided. Uh, how would you characterize the conventional wisdom among many of your peers in Wall Street? I'm thinking particularly of Larry Fink of BlackRock, that the way to make money is for investors to be not only putting their funds into China, but actually trebling the investment they're making in the companies of the Chinese Communist Party. Is that advisable, do you think?
Yeah, it's interesting. You know, the chief investment strategist for BlackRock is a Chinese national, and she made that fateful call about 24% ago. So if you tripled your allocation to China, you're already down 24% on the tripling, whatever you did there. And she made an interesting comment, Frank. She said, you are being rewarded with excess returns for making the investment in China, even if there are additional risks. So we went back and we looked at the Shanghai Composite Index over the last 10 years, and this is pre-market collapse of the last, call it a month and a half or so. So even before the markets collapsed, the numbers were over a 10-year period. The Shanghai Composite Index averaged annually a 2.4% return, while the Standard & Poor's 500 index averaged a 14.5% return over the same 10 years. So what she said was an outright lie. It was Chinese propaganda, and it makes no sense whatsoever. BlackRock, what China does so beautifully, Frank, is they create evangelical cheerleaders amongst the billionaire elites in America. They give people like Fink, Dalio, and Schwartzman special access to their markets, and those people become evangelical about investing in China. If you look at back when they first introduced the Chinese indices into the MSCI, it was December 1992. If you look at where you are today, if you invested back in December of 1992 in the Chinese indices that were added to the MSCI, do you know where you are today, 30 plus years later? You've lost 15% of your money on a price basis. On a total return basis, you've made about 25%, 29%, but that's because they've paid almost 60% in dividends over a 30-year period. What you're doing is you're giving the Chinese Communist Party your money, and they're making the seniorage, and you're making nothing. I don't know how you discount genocide risk. I don't know how you discount Xi Jinping whimsically kneecapping for profit education or tech or whatever else he's going to do for the quote common prosperity of China. It makes no sense, Frank. It makes no sense as a fiduciary. It makes no sense as an American, and it makes no sense whatsoever financially. But people have FOMO with China.
The fear of missing out. Let me ask you about the other piece of this, the financial argument. I think you've just made persuasively, Kyle Bass, but you also understand the strategic implications of these funds, essentially found money for the Chinese Communist Party, to be employed in underwriting the unrestricted warfare in which they're engaged against us. Talk about that, if you would.
Yeah, for those people that believe China's our friend, go back and look at the formation of our potential presidential commission on the origins of the virus. The virus has killed 6 million people around the world, at least today. The WHO thinks that number is really low, and the WHO would know due to their partnership with China. But when you look at the February 4th press release that Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin issued together, you should go reread it. You should think about the formation of the presidential commission. And China said, if we form that commission to study the origins of the virus, they will withhold antibiotics from the United States.
Mm.
Their belligerence, that's geopolitical belligerence, that's militaristic belligerence, is impossible to ignore. And so
Yes.
I think about when we're talking about investing in such a country, what did Putin just teach all of the investing world? That Sberbank and Gazprom and these companies that are primarily owned by the Russian government and then also owned by the public, they just taught us that investing in a despotic, autocratic regime can wipe out your investments. It doesn't matter how, quote, cheap these companies are. It doesn't matter that you might be missing some upside, like investors are so woefully misinformed on. But Frank, it's very important to understand that Putin just taught us that investing in a despotic, autocratic regime is a really bad idea, and it's impossible to discount.
Yeah,
And while
and
people might be,
strategically a bad idea as well. Kyle, I did want to just catch you for a couple of minutes on one particularly important and impending decision, and that is the thrift savings plan of the United States government, the world's largest pension fund, um, invests the money of military personnel, past and present, and government employees, also serving as well as former. Is it advisable for the thrift savings plan to begin facilitating investments of the kinds you've just warned against in communist China through this so-called mutual fund window that they're proposing to open in June for 5,000 mutual funds, at least some of which will have Chinese companies in their portfolios?
I mean, it's unconscionable, Frank. And when you think about the what's going on behind the scenes, you have guys like Fink and Schwarzman that own giant asset management firms, and they are multi-billionaires. And they want these pipes of the hundreds of billions of dollars from our thrift savings plan, from our members of the military, from our congressional leaders and our Senate leaders. They want that money to go into their pockets so that they can earn fees off of this, Frank. It's the super highway of fees that the billionaires are focused on. And again, I've said this many times. If U.S. national security was left to the private sector, Wall Street, and the billionaires, we will all be speaking Chinese tomorrow. And so we need leadership, and we need to understand that we are funding our enemy. Think about what we did. The U.S. funded Germany going into World War II because we were embarrassed about destroying them in World War I. We lent them billions of dollars to build their war machine. We are built. We are continued to build Putin's war machine today, and we are absolutely building China's war machine against us in the future. And as soon as people realize that greed and avarice are the only things that are running the billionaires of Wall Street, maybe we'll find some leadership that changes that.
Well, especially if our military personnel realize that their money is going to be invested in weapon systems intended to kill them. That may be the catalyst for this kind of rethink. Kyle Bass, it's so needed. Your clarity, as I say, your voice on these matters is so appreciated, as is your work with us on the Committee on the Present Danger of China. It's truly invaluable. And I hope that you will not only be more heard in the financial sector, of course, but also in the political realm, because your insights are desperately needed at a moment like this. God
Thank
bless you,
you.
my friend, and we'll talk
Thank
with you
you.
again
Thank you,
soon.
Frank. Thank you.
We'll talk next with Yoram Ediger about the crisis in the Middle East right after this.